How many of you were here when we did the Rebbe's letters on reincarnation? Fewer than half. Okay, so for a little bit of background, when we first started off, I don't have Rabbi took the sheet that tells us when our schedule is, but I think it was my first day here. I think it was the first day of the Yarchei Kallah. We did on our Rebbe's perspective class, just the Rebbe's perspective on reincarnation. And I kept telling you at the time that we're going to talk about what the Rebbe wants us to do with reincarnation, how seriously we take the idea of reincarnation. We're going to do that in the Rebbe class because we want to know the Rebbe's shita, but everything about what it is, how it works, what reincarnation you're up to, all the fun details, we're going to have to wait until this class. This is the promised class. I should define terms first. There is inevitably at least someone in the room who doesn't know what the word reincarnation means and is too embarrassed to ask. Wouldn't it be ashamed to go through an entire class about something that you don't know what it means? So reincarnation is first of all Gilgul, also known as Gilgulim. Reincarnation means that I was here, I lived, I died, my soul went up, God took that soul and sent it back down, packaged it in a new body and gave me another go. That is what reincarnation means. We believe in it. We believe in reincarnation. We established this using the Rebbe's letters. I'm going to show you in a moment. We can establish it in primary sources. The Jewish people believe in reincarnation. And I'm going to show you how it works. I'm going to show you where our sources are for it. We're going to learn some actual Kabbalah together today. Who here is a Kabbalist? Who here is going to be a Kabbalist by the end of the class? There we go. Right, we're becoming Kabbalists today. We're going to study Kabbalah. I'm going to tell you things that are directly from primary Kabbalistic texts, which should be exciting. And hopefully we'll get a full understanding of what reincarnation is, where it fits into Judaism, and much more importantly for us, of course, Ma'aseh hu ha'ikar. The most important thing is the task, what it has to do with my life and how I can become a better Jew and a more self-actualized Jew because of it. That's what we're doing. And in order to, I have a couple hooks that are possible. I could tell you reincarnation stories, I suppose, all those stories of people who their lives just didn't make sense until a tzaddik revealed that indeed they were the reincarnation of somebody whose only job missing was that thing they fixed. There are many such stories. I'm a text-based fellow by nature. I'm going to show you some primary texts. There is a book called the Shara Gilgulim. I'm going to tell you more about it in a moment. But suffice to say, it's by the Arizal, the final arbiter and greatest authority on Kabbalah. The Arizal, in his Shara Gilgulim, goes through famous Gilgulim. I'd like to introduce you to some famous Gilgulim that you might not have known about. You remember Cain and Abel, also known as Cain and Hevel? Remember them? Very dysfunctional family. Very dysfunctional family. Adam and Chava had a relationship that I do not envy. Did they get along as a spouse most of the time? I don't know. I only know the stories they tell about them. The whole fruit thing. It sounds like that marriage could use some work. They have babies. Their babies really don't like each other. One murders the other. Now, however messed up your family is, I don't know if you and your husband or wife committed original sin, got kicked out of the garden, destroyed the world, and brought death into the world, and had two children who murdered each other. If it's not there yet, your marriage is better than this, right? If it's not, this is worst case scenario, I think. They have a kid, Cain and Hevel. Cain kills Hevel. I hope I didn't just spoil the Torah for you. If you hadn't read it yet, I apologize. Cain kills Hevel. Spoiler alert. You do that before you spoil it, right? People are like, oh, now I'm not going to read the Torah now that I know the ending. So Cain kills Hevel. They each have to come back. Each soul has to come back. Cain has to come back because he did a terrible sin. If somebody does a terrible sin, their soul comes back again and again until they right that wrong. A soul comes back again and again until it does every mitzvah in the Torah and fixes all of the sins that it did. So we can all agree, Cain's got to come back again. First murder, pretty big deal. Hevel's got to come back again because he didn't live long enough to complete his task. So Hevel comes back to complete his job, that's Abel, and Cain comes back again to complete the damage that he caused, which was hurting Hevel. And the way that these two souls finally complete their task on this earth is if Cain does a favor for Hevel. If Cain does right by Hevel, both souls become self-actualized and fixed, and they can move on to the next great thing. That's their mission, says the Arizal. So Hevel comes back as Shais. Who remembers Shais? That's Seth. Remember Shais? That's right. There aren't a lot of Shaises in the world besides the very famous Shais Taub. It's kind of like Yechiel, not a terribly common name. But Shais is Adam and Chava's third kid. They have two kids who kill each other, kind of, and then they go, well, now that I'm down a kid, I need to replace him with a new one, and they make Shais. And Shais is named, thank God I got a new one that replaces my old one. That's what his name means. His name means, this is my replacement child. And in Kabbalah, we understand this to mean it was a literal replacement child. Hevel's neshama comes back for a second time in their second child, Shais, almost immediately after the demise of Hevel. Cain takes a while to come back. Cain comes back next time as Esav, as Esau. Good guy or bad guy? Bad guy. The second incarnation does not do him any favors. Cain only killed some people. Esav kills like a lot of people. He's literally known as the murderer. He is the murderer in Jewish history. He's known as being red because he is such a murderous person. Ishmael is known for thievery and known for giving into his evil inclination and known for messing around with a lot of different people, women for example. But he's not known as a murderer. Esav's the murderer. So this murder neshama comes back and does murder neshama stuff again. We still have not fixed Cain, and God gives him another shot. Let me return to him in a moment. Shais is born, Shais dies. But nobody in the Cain line ever does a favor for Shais. So Shais comes back again to continue to give Cain an opportunity to fix him. Shais lives and dies, and the next time comes back as Noach. He's getting better and better, right? Hevel didn't really do anything wrong. Hevel was kind of a show-off. But besides that, Hevel didn't do anything wrong. Shais, as far as we know, did nothing wrong. Noach, as far as we know, is the only person ever to live in his generation who didn't do anything wrong. This soul's getting better and better, but still, that brother soul is not able to fix it. It's not helping. So Noach comes back. He's a big tzaddik. And he dies, and he comes back again as Shem, who's alive at the same time as Noach, and I will explain that to you in a future slide. Just note that for now, for later reference. And that neshama ultimately comes back as Moshe Rabbeinu, as Moses. So Moshe has the neshama of Hevel, Shais, Noach, Shem, and Moshe. Now, that's that line. Let's track the line of his evil brother. Evil twin, Cain. So we have Cain, Esav, wait, Yisro. Okay. Now we finally have two souls that are going to meet again. You remember Yisro? Yisro is Moshe's father-in-law. Okay. After that, he comes back as Korach, who causes trouble for Moshe. And after that, he comes back as Shmuel, who is the second greatest prophet ever to live. And that's when that soul is finally fixed. Having established the two lines, let me show you some things in the Torah you would never know without the Arizal, without the Holy Arizal. Number one, these two souls are trying to meet up, right? And Yisro's job is to meet this soul, who in his time is Moshe, and do him a favor. Yisro does do Moshe a favor. Remember the story? Yisro is Moshe's father-in-law. They're separate for a little while. Moshe takes the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, takes us out of Egypt. He splits the sea. He goes to the desert. We get the Torah. And somewhere around there, Moshe has the bright idea that he should be the rabbi of all 2 million, 3 million Jews all at once. They should all ask him their questions personally. And he runs out of energy. It's destroying him. He can't take 2 million questions. I can relate to this. This happens in the hallway after each lecture. I know what it's like, Moses. So please don't not ask me questions because that was just a joke. There's not 2 million of you. Moshe has to deal with 2 billion shilas. It's a lot. Yisro shows up and he tells Moshe, I have some advice for you. Let's make a court system. You'll be the head of the court system, but people below you will answer questions, and if it gets really complicated, it will come to you. And Yisro basically saves Moshe's life and certainly his mental health and his sanity, adds a whole parsha to the Torah. Yisro does a favor for Moshe. When he does this, as he approaches in Parshas Yisro, he shows up. A message comes from somewhere. A messenger comes and tells Moshe, your father-in-law is coming. So Moshe goes out to greet him, and Yisro shows up. And Yisro says, Ani chaisencha Yisro, which means, hi, it's me, your father-in-law, Jethro. Who here has a father-in-law? I do. Is that how he walks in the front door? Yeah, I know you. You're my father-in-law. He goes, hi, my name's Yisro, your father-in-law. This is not our first time. I lived in Midian for a while. Married your daughter. I know you. This wasn't their first time meeting. He knows his father-in-law. We have stories with the two of them together. Why does he open his line by saying to Moshe, Ani chaisencha Yisro, I am your father-in-law, Yisro. Says the Arizal, that was his soul talking. Ani chaisencha Yisro has the Rashi Teves of Aleph Ches Yud. My brother. He comes to Moshe and says, hi brother, I'm back, let's fix this. And Cain talks to Abel for the first time in generations. There's more. When Moshe is trying to convince God not to destroy the Jewish people after the sin of the golden calf, he speaks to God and says, Ata amarti daticha v'shem v'gam atzasa chen be'enai. You said that you will know me by name, that I will know you by name, and also that I found favor in your eyes. It's one of the ways that Moshe talks to God and talks God into. He says, God, you know me. We have a sprach. We've been talking to each other for a while. You should listen to me when I ask you to forgive the Jewish people. Says the Arizal, that's not what I see. You, God, told me that I would be known as Shem, my prior incarnation. And once you said, Matzachein be'enai, that I found favor in your eyes. Who did God ever say that about? Only one person. Noach. He never said that about Moshe. So Moshe lays down his credentials and says, in my prior life I was Shem and Noach. You know me already, can't we do business? But here's the best one. Here's my favorite one. The one that gives me chills anyway. I told you I over-summarized. I did. I'm over-summarizing. We're doing Kabbalah. But I'm over-summarizing. Hevel's soul has to come back to give Cain's soul the opportunity to help, but at the same time, if this soul line is perfectly righteous, it's not going to have to keep coming back again and again. There are problems up there, and the biggest problem is in Noach. Noach shows up in the world perfectly righteous. He was a big tzaddik. The Torah testifies that he's a big tzaddik, as I've told you before, from his Kabbalah to his Fisalach. So goes the song. He has one fatal flaw. I want to tell you the story of his fatal flaw. God comes to Noach and says, Noach, I have a plan. All right, tell me your plan. I'm going to have a flood. Okay, flood. I'm going to wipe out everyone. The mommies and the tatis and the babies. The kitties and the puppies. Everything on the planet is going to be drowned in a terrible maelstrom. And Noach says back, okay. And God goes, okay? And he goes, okay, yeah, you're God. You run the world. What would you like me to do? Should I drown with them, or should I, what's the... God goes, no. You're going to build a boat, and you're going to be fine, and your family will be fine, but allow me to repeat myself. I will be drowning all the kitties, the puppies, and the babies. And Noach goes, your business, man, your world, your flood. I'll be building a boat. You have no comment? No comment. God runs the world. And he builds a boat. And the whole time he's building a boat, God is hoping he will at some point challenge him or ask, maybe don't kill everybody. And Noach never does this. Noach is perfectly righteous and saves only himself. And although that can't really be counted against him, because he's not commanded to intervene, he's not commanded to challenge God, he didn't do a sin by not doing this, there's something wrong with that neshama. It's not done cooking yet. There's something missing there in a soul that can be perfectly righteous while the world burns. There's something missing in a person who can be self-actualized in their own prayer and Torah learning and mitzvahs and not worry about another Jew in Melbourne who's not there yet. There's something missing there. I can't call it a sin, but I can call it broken. And because it's broken, it's not done cooking, it has to come back. And it comes back as Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu faces the exact same challenge. When Moshe Rabbeinu faces the exact same challenge, the Jewish people are in the desert. We received the Torah at Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, there was no question about our faith in God Almighty. We saw and heard miracles that you don't even see and hear. The Torah tells us we saw what we heard and we heard what we saw. Our ears and eyes switched what they do, and our ears started seeing and our eyes started hearing. There was no doubt about the truth of God Almighty. Moshe says, now that we're all sure we believe in God and Torah, I'm going on a little business trip up the mountain. I'll be back like in just a few minutes. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do. No house parties while I'm gone. And he's up on the mountain, and up there he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink, he doesn't sleep. He has transcend the physical mortal coil. And as he's up there in the heavens, talking to God, experiencing the truth of Torah and the truth of Yiddishkeit, suddenly an announcement comes, Lech red ki sheches amcha. Get off the mountain, Moshe Rabbeinu, your people are rotten. And by the way, this is a very important lesson for anybody who associates themselves with the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation. The Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation is only as powerful as his feet. And if the Hasidim and the people who associate with our Rebbe are not acting appropriately, God kicks them right off the mountain. Moshe Rabbeinu's lofty ability is based on the hard work of the feet and the rest of the body. The whole Jewish people are in this together. When the feet aren't acting appropriately, the head can't do what it's supposed to do. Moshe's ability to have a prophetic experience hinges on the ability of his people to keep Torah and mitzvahs. So God says to Moshe, you don't deserve to be up here. Your feet are acting out. So Moshe comes down the mountain and goes, what in the world did they do? He gets to the mountain edge and he sees, of all things to do, they're literally worshiping an idol. They have a golden cow. And if you've ever wondered how somebody only 40 days after being sure about God can worship a golden calf, I think you probably haven't looked in the mirror. Just to be honest with you. I'm just being honest with you. Because I know that I've felt that way before. For example, how many people feel by Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur, the very last service on Yom Kippur, when the hunger goes away, right? The hunger goes away by Ne'ilah, it really does. You're hungry by Mincha. Mincha is so hungry. And at some point, maybe not even at the beginning of Ne'ilah, when we all scream out, Hashem hu ha'elokim, and Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, in those moments, I don't believe that there is a Jew anywhere in a shul, anywhere crying out those words, who would ever do a sin again. Really, in that moment, you could give any Jew any temptation in the world, and they are immune to it for that moment. What do you like the next day? So you can relate to the people by the mountain, right? It turns out that inspiration is fantastic, but if inspiration comes from on high and I have not packaged it in my own daily life, it comes and goes just as quickly. Inspiration is fickle like that. They were inspired, but they didn't have kalim to hold it in, and therefore, as soon as the inspiration went away and Moshe wasn't staring at them and there wasn't a voice on the mountain, they went back to idolatry. That's what happens when you get inspired and don't make it your own. Anyway, Moshe comes down, goes, well, this is bad, breaks the tablets, makes them eat the tablets, kills a bunch of people, and goes back up the mountain. To over-summarize the story. He goes back up the mountain. He says to God, God, I get that wasn't the idea of the first, couple commandments. But you know them. We're good, right? I'm Shem and I'm Neach, like we know each other, you know these people. We're good, right? And God goes, oh, we are not good. I have a plan, Moshe. I am going to destroy all of them. The men, the women, and the children. The babies, the puppies, the kitties. I'm going to wipe them all out. And I'm going to restart from you. You'll be fine. And the soul is given the same challenge again. And this time, Moshe says, Mechenina misifrecha shekasavta. That's the way you feel. Erase me from your book. I want nothing to do with the Judaism that doesn't include my people. I'm going down with them. If you can handle their sin, fantastic. If not, if you can't handle this, if you can't see your way past it, then I'm going down with them. You don't get to remake a world from me. I'm with my Jews. And in that moment, the soul was actualized, and he fixed what was wrong. But you know what else happened? Don't forget your Arizal. If the soul is speaking, it's in the text. Mechenina spelled backwards is Ani Noach. Wow. And that's when Noach's soul got fixed. So the big secret of Gilgulim, before we get into it in our own lives and how exactly it works, is that God runs the world. God gives everybody an opportunity to fix their problems. God is demanding about it and will bring someone back again and again and again until they get it right. Nobody is ever completely lost. Nobody's not under God's hashgacha in this life or in the next life. And even our great leaders cycled through a few times until they nailed their purpose. Now let's look at how exactly it works. I will. It's like 5 slides from now I'm going to explain shame. I'm going to get back to him. Do you mind? It's a little disorganized. Whoever made these slides was not considerate of the audience. I probably should, to vastly over-summarize what I'm about to tell you, and another over-summarization in that slide is that Gilgulim has a function called Ibor, which means that sometimes 2 souls can exist in the same body at the same time temporarily. I'll show you later. Okay. First, a little bit of background. Kabbalah is really old. We have a Kabbalah Sefer I told you about yesterday that's attributed either to Adam or to Abraham. So it goes back real far. Kabbalah is not a new invention. There are a lot of heretics, and they are heretics, who would like to try to convince the Jewish people that Kabbalah is something that we got from the nations of the world, or that was snuck into our tradition in the Middle Ages. This is bonkers. We have a record of Kabbalah going all the way back to the very, very beginning of Yiddishkeit. There have always been 4 levels of study of the Torah: the Pshat at the most basic, the Remez one above, the Drush one above, and the Sod above that, which is the great secret of the Torah, the great secrets of the universe. We have always had Kabbalah, but for most of Jewish history, we were not allowed to teach it to any but 1 or 2 leaders in every generation, and therefore it was not widely published and not widely publicized. The Talmud tells us in Tractate Chagiga that it is forbidden to teach the deepest secrets of the Torah, known as Maseh Merkava, the deep secrets of the chariot of God, except one-on-one and to your finest students, which means most people lived and died without ever having access to any of the Kabbalah of the Torah, but it's always been there. It just wasn't time yet to release it to the world at large. I one time, irrelevant to our discussion, but I can't resist farbringing with you. I one time was at a C-teen Shabbaton. This is for the Chabad teens. It was one of the earlier ones when they were just starting to do their real big programs. And I think they had, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think they had one of the Rabbi Jacobsons, I think it was Simon Jacobson. I think they had Rabbi Simon Jacobson speaking to the teenagers. And he was trying to present the idea of Chassidus and the idea of Kabbalah. And he said to them, he gave this opening. He said that back then, way, way back, used to be that only the greatest leaders of the generation, the very few and the very proud, were allowed to study the deep mystical secrets of the Torah. How many of you think you would have been one of those? And everybody raised their hand. The youth are incredible. On one hand, this made me laugh because that is the youth in America. But on the other hand, that's the power of the youth of America. There's the power of the youth of the West. It's the power of youth right now, is that they really do believe they can do anything, and we need to harness that. Because there is a way to harness that productively. I don't know that that's the way to harness it productively, but there's a way to productively harness that urge. Anyway, it used to be most people didn't get to study Kabbalah their entire lives. Very few people ever were exposed to this stuff. Around the time about 2,000 years ago, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, that started weakening a little bit, that very serious barrier, and the Zohar was published, although it was not widely circulated, and Kabbalah started making it a little more into the mainstream, in that people were publishing Kabbalah Sfarim, and then limiting who could read them. Nechoni ben Akana wrote the Sefer Rabbi here, he was from the time of the Mishnayos. So you get indications that the restriction on spreading Kabbalah is loosening a little, but still very much for the elite, and very much for the ones we trust with the greatest secrets. Around the time of the Arizal, this essentially gets completely blown up. Completely blown open. Around between the year 1534 and 1572, which is when the Arizal lived, the Arizal starts teaching Kabbalah to everybody in a very open way, explaining the specifics, unpacking the old ideas, taking Kabbalistic books that were once written literally in code that could not be understood, even if you read them and knew what they meant, decoding them and explaining what they really meant, and he creates a formula of Kabbalah that anybody can study if they're willing to try hard enough. That is, it's still incredibly difficult and incredibly esoteric, but it's readable. It's at least readable. It's not in code. And he spreads his Kabbalah, and he becomes the arbiter of Kabbalah. He becomes the Shulchan Aruch of Kabbalah. He takes all these old Kabbalistic ideas, bashes them back and forth, says this one was meant to be non-literal, this one's meant to be literal, this one was written in code, this one's written in pshat. And he takes all the different opinions and formalizes them into formal Kabbalah the way that it is studied today. Nowadays, anybody who wants to rely on a Kabbalistic opinion that is before the Arizal, that he did not affirm or reject, is honestly swimming in waters that are way beyond their capabilities. Way beyond the capabilities of anybody living in this generation. If your Kabbalah is not filtered through the Arizal, you are making stuff up. From the Arizal onward, Lurianic Kabbalah, as it's known, begins to develop. His student Rav Chaim Vital wrote down most of his work, and a good deal of his work is contained in the Eitz Chaim. The Eitz Chaim has multiple gates, and one of the gates of the Eitz Chaim is the Shar HaGilgulim, the gate of reincarnation. I was asked 3 years ago or so to prepare a class on reincarnations, and so what I did was what a Jew should do. I opened the gate of reincarnations, the only authoritative source on Gilgulim, read it, took notes, turned them into slides, and that is what I'm going to present to you today. An abridged version of the Shar HaGilgulim. The following is how the Arizal himself, the final arbiter of Kabbalah, describes Gilgulim. That's what we're going to show you. So we're going to learn the Shar HaGilgulim together. That's what this class is. I don't know if the rabbi knows that's what we signed up for. We're going to just learn the Shar HaGilgulim. That's what we're going to do. Of course, with fun pictures over summaries and my own good humor. The Arizal is not very funny, although he is sometimes. I'll show you an Arizal joke in a slide or two if you remind me. I'm not even kidding. He's sometimes a little funny. All right. In the Torah itself, as I told you, Gilgulim is a hidden concept, but so is most of Kabbalah. What I should have mentioned earlier, I think most of the people in this room, I can tell, are either Chabad or strongly exposed. so exposed as to be perhaps contagious at this point. But you've either been exposed or you're in Chabad, so you probably know this. But just in case you don't, I will reiterate very quickly what is actually, which is a much longer story and discussion, that taking the Lurianic Kabbalah and making it even more accessible was the main job of the Baal Shem Tov and the main job of the Alter Rebbe and the main job of the Rebbeim of Chabad. And that our knowledge, what our Rabbeim have told us is that every generation we get closer to Mashiach and the exile gets deeper, we need more revelation of the inner dimension of the Torah, first of all to keep us afloat, and second of all to prepare us for the coming of Mashiach, who will be teaching Torah at this level. And therefore, nowadays, the study of Chassidus Chabad is the best way to get through the darkness of Gullus, because it reveals the nuclear power that is in the hidden dimension of the Torah in a way that anybody can understand it, and also prepares us for the Torah of Mashiach. When Mashiach comes, before the end of this lecture, and starts teaching Torah, he will be beginning at Sod. So people who have a background in Chassidus and in Kabbalah are going to be more used to the style of teaching that Mashiach will be introducing. Similar to the idea that I've mentioned this in several sichas, that on Erev Shabbos, who has this custom? Do you have this custom on Erev Shabbos that you taste all of the food? It's a real custom. It's not just your husband raiding the kitchen. I mean, it might be. Ask your husband. But there is an actual custom to go around and taste all of the food on Erev Shabbos to make sure it's cooked properly in honor of Shabbos. It's called Te'ima Shabbos Be'erev Shabbos. We do this in Chassidus. We are tasting the Torah of Mashiach before it is fully revealed with the coming of Mashiach. And Chassidus and Kabbalah is a little taste of the cholent that we will eventually be having when Mashiach comes. So there are many reasons why this has been more revealed nowadays, and why nowadays I can teach you what's in the Shar HaGilgulim, because we're on the brink and it's time to get some taste. So this is the taste of what Mashiach will be teaching us. That's what Kabbalah is, that's what Chassidus is. Okay, that said, we don't have anything in our primary sources. Tanakh, Mishnah, and Gemara do not at any point explicitly mention Gilgulim. When I said this earlier, somebody pointed out to me that there are certainly verses in Tanakh that can be read as Gilgulim, but the pshat is not that. So there's no pshat in Tanakh, Mishnah, or Gemara that gives you Gilgulim. However, there are Mishnah authors who wrote about Gilgulim. The Sefer Rabbi here, which was written by Nechoni ben Akana, certainly mentions Gilgulim. He has some mentions of it. In the Midrashim, many Midrashim are written by Tanaim who wrote Mishnah. For example, the Medrash Rabbi
Rabbah is written by Rabbah. Medrash Tanchuma is written by Rabbi Tanchum. Did you know this? All Midrashim are just named after the guy who wrote them. That's why I should make a Medrash Yechiel. It'd be all the stuff mine be made up. Theirs are real. But I could make up stories. As a matter of fact, some people have told me I have already several times since I've come here. So they make midrashim. The midrashim are real, of course, and those midrashim, they're real stories. They are attributed, generally speaking, to Tanaim and Amoraim, and they certainly do mention the Mishnah authors and the Gemara authors, and they certainly do mention Gilgulim. So this generation talks about them, but it's not in the primary texts. Among the Rishonim, that's roughly people who lived from the year 900 until the year 1600. That's roughly the next stage of Jewish thought, if you cut out the Gaonim a little bit. And in the Rishonim, you have it tons. You have it in all of the Reishas, right? You have it in your Ramban, your Rakanti, you have it in the Arachaim, you have it in the Rebbeinu Bechaya. I only listed 4 who mentioned it at length. You have it in a lot of Rishonim. I do not believe Rambam ever mentions it. I think Rambam actually pushes against it a little bit. But in general, you have most of your Rishonim at some point, especially the Kabbalistically inclined ones from Italy and Spain. Fun fact about Kabbalah is that although a whole lot of the halacha of the Torah and a whole lot of the liturgy and a whole lot of the philosophy comes out of Spain, Kabbalah comes out of Barcelona and Italy. That particular part of Sfard seems to where all the Kabbalah was born. So the ones who were there tend to be more Kabbalistic. Among the later scholars after that, from the 1600s onward, from Arizal onward, revealing the Shara Gilgulim, it's like everybody. And when I say like everybody, I mean it doesn't matter what side of the major arguments you are on. You might know that the major argument that shook Ashkenaz until the greater threat of Haskalah and reform took over was the argument between the Misnagdim and the Hasidim, 2 great schools of thought that both had incredible leaders on either end of it. The Vilna Gaon, this incredible genius and incredibly righteous person leading the camp of the opponents of Chassidus, and the Baal Shem Tov and his followers, to the Alter Rebbe really, if you're doing the timeline right, leading the other camp. And both of them agreed about Gilgulim. They both wrote that reincarnation is a real thing. So for a period of time, even if you were an ideologically opponent on 2 sides of an argument, you could at least agree on reincarnation. So by this point in Jewish history, it's very well established. So well established, you can't find a rabbinic scholar who doesn't tell you that it's real, it's our thing, it's true. So this is shortly after the Arizal reveals it, so it does make some sense. Practically speaking, we have Jewish laws that are derived from Gilgulim that we would not paskin the way we do in halakha, in daily action, if it wasn't for Gilgulim, if it wasn't for reincarnation. I have a couple on screen, let me tell you them, they're a lot of fun. Who here, unfortunately, I'm among them, has been to a cemetery lately? I went to the Akamas Matzeva, Hashem Yikom Damei, and when we got to the cemetery, have you been to the cemetery lately? Yeah, for you this question is not going to be applicable, I'm afraid, but do hang on tight. For you who've been to a cemetery, when you go to a cemetery, what do you do with these guys? You tuck them in. Why do we tuck them in?
Not to shame the...
Yeah, like Larash, not to shame the dead. You walk past a dead guy, and your tzitzis are dragging over his grave. The dead guy looks up and says, oh man, I missed tzitzis. Really? I mean, I meant it to be funny the way I said it. Don't feel bad for laughing. But that's what he says, oh man, I missed tzitzis. And the reason why is because any soul that wasn't blocked constantly by the evil inclination and by the animalistic soul, any soul that's got its head on straight knows that we have a limited amount of time in this world. In our case, because Mashiach is coming, a limited amount of time in exile, and we need to chaparain, we need to use every single moment to do Torah and mitzvahs, and that every moment not dedicated to Torah and mitzvahs is a waste, and therefore, somebody lying underneath the dirt watches tzitzis drag over his nose and goes, I wish I'd done a little more with my tzitzis. I wish I'd checked them more. I wish I'd tied them more carefully. I wish I'd looked at them more often. I wish I'd used them more. I wish I'd worn them to sleep. Some people don't wear them to sleep. I wish I'd worn them more often. I wish I just had more tzitzis. That's the way the dead feel. If you were to interview any dead person right now and ask them what's going on up there, they'll say, number 1, God is true, Torah is true, the Yidden are right. Number 2, are you upset about anything? The opportunities I missed to do mitzvahs. You know what they will not say? The opportunities they missed to do anything else. That's what all souls wish they could still do. So the reason why it's leg l'rash, the reason why it is insulting to show off your mitzvahs in a cemetery is because that's the only thing they miss. It's not insulting to eat in a cemetery. They don't miss food. You can bring, imagine I put pizza over the grave. You go, oh man, I miss pizza. That's not what, they don't care. They don't care. They care about mitzvahs. That's the truth of the world. If you visit, Rahman al-Islan, the grave of a small child, lo ya'aleinu, you also tuck in your tzitzis. Why? They're not chayiv in tzitzis. A 1-year-old, a 2-year-old. Says the Mishnah Brura. This is the Mishnah Brura, the Chavetz Chaim. This is regular non-Hasidic Torah. Says the Mishnah Brura, the reason why we tuck in our tzitzis, even when visiting Lo Ya'aleinu Rahman al-Islam, the grave of a small child, is because inevitably in one of their Gilgulim, they did have to wear tzitzis, and it's still like Larash. Meaning we wouldn't tuck in our tzitzis if it wasn't for that when going to a child's grave. This is a din in Mishnah Brura. So it's a regular din, regular halacha. There's another one. On Yom Kippur, I'm sure we all say vidoy. The Ashamnu Bagadnu Gaza. I just did it again. Poor microphone. Ashamnu Bagadnu. It didn't fall off. We're safe.
we bang our chests. And the Asham news, I think all of I don't know you and your sins. I do most of the Asham news. I've been guilty, I've rebelled. I mean, because they're general, right? There's levels of this. There's levels of this. Even if you don't steal, perhaps you stole someone's sleep, perhaps you stole an opportunity, perhaps you took credit for something. The basic Asham news are vague enough that I think we can wrap our heads around the fact that most of us might have done them, and it's not out of left field. You ever read the Yarchei though? I did not do the Yarchei. I didn't do most of the things on the Yarchei. I would say a good half of the things on the Yarchei I've never even kind of done. The Yarchei list, the one that's really, really long, something, I haven't done a good half of those. Really. Really. And when I get to the later part of the list, for the ones that I'd be chayiv in different karbanos for, I know what carbon I'd have to offer for certain averos, and some of those I know I didn't do. I would never be chayiv that carbon. Without a doubt, I know I didn't do it. And one thing you're absolutely not supposed to do on Yom Kippur is tell lies in public like 8 times. And here on Yom Kippur, I'm repeating again and again, I did this sin, I'm chayav in this, and I'm not. So should I edit my Yarchei? God forbid. Of course not. The Yavitz explains why. The Yavitz says, you have no idea what you did in your last life, cover your bases. It says the reason why we mention sins we didn't do is because we probably did. We've been here a few times. And so yeah, I didn't do it this time around, but I wouldn't be back here if last time was great. Odds are I probably did it last time. So he says do it for that reason. There's a bunch of these. I gave you 2 examples. I'm going to show you one later that's beautiful involving divorce, actually, of all things. But there's a couple places in regular Jewish law, not Chassidus, not Kabbalah, halacha, where these things come up. So Gilgulim is absolutely part of what we do. I want to I pulled out 5 of my favorite facts about Gilgulim. Obviously the Shara Gilgulim is long and has many facts about Gilgulim, pages and pages. Here are my 5 favorite facts about Gilgulim. That I think is AI. I think I AI'd that one. I think I said AI like draw me reincarnation, and it gave me a man with a long stick walking through a whirlpool. So anyway, that's how AI imagines. That one, you asked me yesterday, was the baby. That was not, this one I think is AI. I think I made this one more recently. Rule number 1. There was originally just one soul, and it was Adam's soul. That soul was broken into 2 pieces, Adam and Eve's soul. After that, every single soul of every person who's ever lived, Jew and lahavdil non-Jew, has been derived from those core souls. They are sparks that broke off the original souls. A good deal of these original souls then create major categories of souls, 600,000 of them among those who leave Egypt, and since then, every Jew who's ever lived or died is a spark off of that original 600,000 people who left Egypt, which means that full souls don't really come back, sparks of souls come back. It's quite possible, we talked about this in our share before from the Rebbe Shitta, it's quite possible that everybody in this room, including myself, are all sparks of the same core soul of the 600,000. There are now, thank God, many, many Jews. May there be many, many, many more. All of them living well and successfully in Torah and mitzvahs. Maybe we have many more, but at this point we have something like 14 million Jews. That's a lot more than 600,000 souls. Those 600,000 have broken into pieces, and we might all be part of the same one. As a matter of fact, the Arizal does at least imply that you and your close family are very likely from the same soul directly above in those sparks. That sparks tend to congregate together. Odds are, at least from my reading of the Kisvei Arizal, that I'm not part of yours, because it seems this is also somewhat geographic. That major souls will split into sparks that all end up in the same general place. And although I'm very happy to be here right now, I am not, as perhaps you can tell, a Melbourne native. But people you're with, the community you decide to go through life with, and it's be'ashgacha pratis that you're in this community with these people, these are people who you're very intentionally with. In many ways, even if they're not your direct family, you know, all Jews are one family. We're all related to one soul. We're all one Jewish body, but it gets more granular than that. The Jewish community in Melbourne, as the Arizal would have it, is so deeply connected that you could suspect that you're all sparks of the same soul anyway, which is the way you should be treating your neighbors. And one of the reasons why in Jewish law we value the needs of the people closest to us first is because of this. If your family needs help, you help them first. If your community needs help, you help them first. You help your own community before you help the land of Israel, before you help anywhere else as far as charity is concerned. Priorities in helping others begins with the fact that when I know if you're in a community, this community seems very friendly, you guys seem to get along, but I've lived in communities before, and let me tell you something, I know that some of you hate someone else. I know there's someone in this community that some of you can't stand. There's got to be, right? That's just the way communities work. Let me tell you something, you're probably looking in the mirror. That's probably you. That's the truth. The truth is, if you really can't stand someone, they're probably you. As a matter of fact, the Baal Shem Tov says it a little differently, but the same core idea. Says the Baal Shem Tov, you only notice negative qualities in other people that are your own negative qualities. A mensch is a spiegel. People tend to be mirrors. If you hate something about somebody, odds are people hate that about you too. You probably have it. People are very resistant to that idea. But I got to tell you, when the Torah tells us to love your neighbor as yourself, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamecha is the klal gadol b'Torah, the great principle of the Torah, it's not talking about the people you already like. It's not.
God is not saying love the people you already like. He's saying, you know that one person you can't love? That one. That's what the mitzvah is. That's why it's a klal gadol b'Torah. It's incredibly hard. I was hoping it was everybody except for that guy. That guy, that one. Yeah. So I don't mean to pontificate, maybe I do, but this is one of the great secrets of Gilgulim, is that we're all very much connected and the souls don't come back in full form, sparks come back. Big point number 2. A truly wicked person gets only 3 chances before their soul is ground up and obliterated and does not have a future or a past and is as if it never existed, taken out of history itself. Right, like, oh shoot, things just got serious. Don't worry. The Arizal then defines what a Rasha is. A Rasha is somebody who makes it through life never having done a single mitzvah, a single one, even by mistake. I don't know that that's ever happened. Jews do mitzvahs by mistake. We do. The Talmud tells us that if you have a hole in your pocket and a coin falls out through that and a poor person picks it up, that counts as charity. If you've smiled at a person who was feeling down, you did a mitzvah. Maybe not the best you could be doing. You need to do a lot better. There's a code of Jewish law with a ton of mitzvahs you have to get to. But there is not a Jew, I think, who's ever lived, who's made it through this entire life at that level. If you manage to do it 3 times, though, you're done. Okay? So make sure everybody does at least one mitzvah. I think most people do by default. Anybody else is called a tzaddik. Not literally, but for our purposes now, and they get up to 1,000 chances to come back, and many of the commentaries say that when the Arizal says 1,000, he means infinite. That if you do a mitzvah at least one each life, then you never run out of chances. So you can be quite confident. I'm quite confident that no one in this room is going to ever run out of chances. I'm also quite confident that Mashiach's coming, so you're not going to need any more chances anyway. But you don't have to worry about this, but it is noteworthy that there is a possibility of doing things so poorly so many times that game over. Number 3, this is in Tractate Avodah Zarah. This is not from the Arizal. He quotes it and elaborates upon it, but it's in the Talmud. The Talmud tells us, Rabbi Yechiel says, Mashiach cannot come until all neshamas that are meant to go into bodies go into bodies. If anybody is still waiting in line for their next Gilgul, Mashiach can't come. He's standing at the door saying, I'm about to walk into the room, but somebody isn't having a baby yet, which is one of the reasons why it is so important for us, if we are able to have as many children as possible, and if we are not able to encourage as many people as possible to have healthy, good Jewish children raised in a good Jewish environment. This brings Mashiach. The Rebbe spoke about this many times, that procreation, Jewish procreation, is one of the secrets to bringing Mashiach Tzidkenu. Point number 4. Women, generally speaking, don't need reincarnation. We talked about this in that shir at the beginning. I know that those of you who were not there are very surprised. I'll tell you about it in a second. Says the Arizal, women usually don't reincarnate, and yet they come back anyway. Explain that one. I'll explain it. Men, you have a mitzvah to learn Torah in all of your free time. Any moment that you have free time, and don't need to rest for energy or eat, true free time. Any of your true free time that is not dedicated to Torah, you are technically chayav kares, according to Tanya, right? He quotes the Gemara. Hakares tikares, right? Incredibly, very serious. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed for this. Women, you are not only welcome to learn Torah, it is a mitzvah for you to learn Torah. It's fantastic when you learn Torah. You know what happens if you decide not to learn Torah? Nothing. You don't have to. It's good for you, I think. I think in this day and age, the Prisha mentions this, but this is all over the codes of Jewish law, especially in the latter portions, the latter commentaries, that nowadays that women have education in general, they must learn Torah. It used to be that many women lived and died without ever having opened a book. So they don't need Torah, they don't need the secular stuff, fine. If you're not going to use your brain, what's the danger? But nowadays that both men and women use their brains productively, it is a terrible thing for a woman not to fill her mind with Torah. Then nowadays that women are wise, that's the way that the Shulchan Aruch is realistic. I don't think mean, I think realistic. It says nowadays that women are wise, they'd better know Torah. And yeah, nowadays women are wise. I think everybody in this room has a basic education in something not Jewish, which means nowadays I think you are quite obligated to learn Torah. At the same time, I can't tell you it's a sin not to study it. If you choose not to study, that is certainly not a sin. How many sins, therefore, does the average man do per day? 1 million? Every millisecond of not studying Torah? I sit on the couch for 5 minutes. It's an infinite number of averas. I can't even count that many. Women do sins too, I've heard. I wouldn't know. My wife's a tzaddikus, and my daughter is under bas mitzvah age. But I'm told that some women, and my mother's perfect, but I'm told that some, and my mother-in-law is too. But I just said, and my mother-in-law is too. But I'm told, I'm told that women do sins too. The thing is that the moment of death is traumatic. I don't think anybody, even people who die relatively well, I don't think anybody dies very well. Death is not pleasant. It doesn't feel good, so I'm told. And apparently I've done it before. Apparently, right? Apparently I've been there. Apparently I've done it. It's not pleasant. And the moment of death, the fact that it's unpleasant, atones for the majority of a person's sins in their lifetime. Meaning most people go to the next world relatively clean of sin, simply from the trauma of death. Even the trauma of a good death, whatever that means. The trauma of it, the uncertainty. And after a little while in the higher worlds, you can usually clean most of the schmutz off and they just don't have to come back again. That's for baseline sins. What if you have a quadrillion sins a day because you are hypothetically a man who took a 5-minute break every day from Torah study? You can't shake that off. So a lot of men have to come back. Women, generally speaking, don't do sins serious enough that they would have to come back. So why do women come back? Because, bad news, Zivugim. Bad news, Bashert. If you're married to someone, and you're in this room right now, the Arizal says, odds are you were married to them in every one of your reincarnations. God makes both teams come back every single time. So women, if you are in this room right now, you are here because in the last life your husband messed up. It's their fault you're here. So that's what the Arizal means. The Arizal means women don't usually need Gilgulim and get dragged back by their good-for-nothing husbands. So I am the reason my wife is back here. And I quite selfishly will tell you, as I did in the first year when we discussed this, I would do another 10 Gilgulim with her. She's fantastic. I don't know if she feels that way. She probably would like me to, fix things up so we can move on. But yeah, if you want to, one of the main jobs of women, according to the Talmud, is to encourage their husbands to learn Torah. Does that hit a little different now? Yeah, if you don't want to come back, you'd better fix that side. You're probably okay. That side could you, guys, this is, why do you keep doing this to them? I just gave your wives so much ammunition. Like, you brought us back for a second Gilgul. You can't even put your dish in the sink. Like, after what you've done to us. There is 3 opinions in the Kabbalah as to whether Gentiles reincarnate. Ready for this? Opinion number 1, they do. Opinion number 2, they don't. Opinion number 3, sometimes. So what do I have to tell you? I have no idea. I have no idea. When there are 3 opinions and they're yes, no, and sometimes, I don't know. I don't know. Ask your local Orthodox goy whether they are coming back. I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell you what I don't know. I don't know. I want to do the mystery of Ibor now. I teased this a little bit earlier. I hinted it earlier that Shem was alive at the same time as Noach, and yet they shared a soul. That was the reincarnation of that soul. The Arizal mentions a concept called Ibor, which is one of the great mysteries of Kabbalah, and I will tell you, although people do sometimes dare to give reincarnation classes, they generally speaking do not teach Ibor. It is too subtle a concept, and I'm not afraid. Let's do it. Ibor's fantastic. The idea of Ibor is that sometimes the soul of a righteous person who only needs to be in this world for a short period of time but not for a full lifetime will come into someone's body that currently has a soul and for a short period of time piggybacks and rides along. One of the examples of this that I can't prove but that I suspect is that this is what happens to Chabad Rebbeim. I suspect that this is how the Nasi works. I expect that this is how Moshe Rabbeinu's soul works. And the reason why I suspect it is because of things that our Rebbeim have said. For example, we say that every Rebbe has the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu. And also, most of our Rebbes lived at the same time biologically in this world as several other Rebbes. So how do you get the soul of Moses each time? It seems to me, on a cursory glance, based on some of what our Rebbeim have said, that everybody has each of these Rebbes have their own soul, and the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu pops in during their Nesias and then pops out for the next one. One of the reasons that I think this is because the Rebbe said something sort of like this in the year Tavshin Yud Aleph. I have the quote on the bottom of the screen. The Rebbe says, Eineni emen nishmasa Eden. I never say about the previous Rebbe that his soul is in the Garden of Eden, which is what you say about the righteous who are not alive anymore. You say nishmasa Eden. So the Rebbe says, I never say about my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, that his soul is in Eden, Ella nishmasa bi. I always say his soul's in me. Which might be a beautiful message about how those who we love are never truly away from us, and might be Ibor. There is definitely an implication in Tanya that the righteous, when they need a boost, somebody who's already righteous but needs to become extra righteous, will be given a soul of another righteous person for a ride along. That's definitely implied in places. So is it possible this is how Nasiim work? I don't know. It's also none of my business. As somebody who is not a Nasi of Chabad, I'm not sure it matters. Right? I'm not sure it matters how our tzaddikim work, but I have a suspicion. I'll tell you one that I'm sure about, because that's a guess. And anything that's a guess, you should take exactly that seriously. That's not written anywhere, and therefore, take it as it's a thought. Here's something I'm sure about. The Arizal says that some people, even if they're perfectly righteous, don't get to do all the mitzvahs in the Torah. And let me give you an example. One of the 613 commandments, as counted by Rambam, is to get divorced. Well,
Thank God I haven't. Thank God I don't plan on becoming divorced. Do you think maybe that makes me a bad Jew? Maybe it does. Maybe I should go divorce my wife because I love God and I'll marry her again afterwards. But I can't miss out on the mitzvah of divorce. The great mitzvah of handing a get to a woman that you don't want to be married to anymore is an incredible mitzvah. The great mitzvah of receiving a get from someone who you don't want to be married to anymore on this side of the mechitza. God forbid nobody here, but you understand. Women receiving a get and a man giving a get is an incredible mitzvah that clarifies the soul and puts garments on the soul and fixes the soul. Shouldn't we all aspire to this great goal of divorcing our spouses? I see we don't see a lot of enthusiasm for this.
Depends on your life.
Right. I mean, I'm glad. Right. If you guys started applauding, I'd be like, Rabbi, you got to do some counseling in this community. I'm glad they weren't excited about that possibility. But really, I mean, I'm missing out on a mitzvah. Don't seem hardly fair. Now the answer is that this is a mitzvah that is not a mitzvah chiyuvis. This is not a mitzvah that a person must do. This is a mitzvah that if the occasion arises, you must do it. So there are occasions where a marriage cannot survive anymore. And if that occasion is met, it becomes a mitzvah to do a divorce. It's not a mitzvah for everybody to do a divorce. At the same time, Kabbalistically speaking, any soul that doesn't get to do a divorce, get the opportunity to do a divorce, will end up missing a piece of its garment in heaven and will not understand God with perfect clarity in the next world. It's missing something. So, says the Arizal, every time two people are about to get divorced, and this is obviously usually a very sad moment, a husband and wife meet to sunder their marriage, and the husband is about to hand a get to his wife, and they'll no longer be husband and wife. There's a line of souls in heaven who go, could we come down and ride along for that? And a number of very righteous male souls enter that man's body, and a number of very righteous female souls enter that woman's body, and they all do the divorce together. Which means in this moment of incredible tragedy for a couple is a moment of incredible celebration for thousands of souls who are waiting for the opportunity to join you in a mitzvah. Which I think changes divorce a little bit. It's still sad, but in our saddest moments, the rest of the Jewish people are with us, and in our worst moments, we are somehow, whether we know it or not, helping somebody else. That's Ibur as well, that sometimes souls come along for ride-alongs. It's not the only case. Anytime there's a rare mitzvah that most people don't get to do, you can assume you have passengers. I don't think a lot of people get to do Shluach HaKen. Not a lot of people get to shoo away the mother bird. It's a relatively rare mitzvah. If you've ever done that mitzvah, there's a good chance that you had passengers, that a couple other souls that were perfectly righteous but just never crossed by a mother bird under the right scenario said, hey, could I hop in for that one? And they sent him back down just for a moment to take a ride on you while you're doing a mitzvah, which means if you ever get the opportunity to do a rare mitzvah, you should assume you have passengers and act accordingly. That's Ibur. That's the secret of Ibur. So maybe it's something that Moshe Rabbeinu's soul does, I don't know, but I can tell you this, it's something we do. We do Ibur. Yes?
You keep saying souls rising back, don't you mean sparks?
Yes, I'm using the vernacular. I can't not talk about this. It's honestly not the most interesting part to me, but when we talk about Gilgulim and we talk about reincarnation, we've got to at least entertain the possibility that some of you in your last life were a rock. It's got to be possible. We got to talk about it. I will say that Rav Sadia Gaon and the Gaonim who had issue with reincarnation, their biggest issue with reincarnation was this, not the idea of reincarnation. They didn't push back real hard against the idea that souls come back in human bodies. They were very opposed to the idea that a soul can come back in an animal or a plant. However, the Arizal says it's true, and everybody else since him agrees it's true, and therefore it's true. The Shara Gilgulim mentions that people absolutely can end up in plants or animals. However, number one, it's not good. It's always a serious punishment for a serious crime. Normal sins that Jews do not reincarnate them into animals or plants. It's not a good thing. Number two, it's very different than other forms of reincarnation. Your current incarnation you're in right now, you have no way of remembering what you were last time. However, if somebody is reincarnated into a plant or an animal or a rock, they remember being a human and it causes them pain the whole time. And number four, or three, I forget what number I was up to in my magical list, it's not for very long. You don't have people stuck in rocks for years and years. It's for like 3 to 4 months. And then their soul is brought out. The rock stays. So what happens is souls cycle into physical things as a punishment, as a way of rectifying them. I don't want to use the word punishment. As a way of fixing them. And after a couple months in the rock, they leave the rock. After a couple months in the plant, they leave the plant. You don't have a rock that's been sitting here for thousands of years that has some Jew locked in there. That's not how this works. But souls, according to the Arizal, certainly cycle through the natural world. I actually have a calendar here of when they cycle, in case you're curious. Between the month of Av and Cheshvan, souls that are in rocks are moved to plants. From Nisan to Tammuz, souls that are in plants are moved to animals, and from Kislev to Adar, souls that are in animals are moved back into humans.
And then they can try again as a human. So this does happen. It's a thing. There's a hierarchy also. I mean, if you find yourself in an animal, God forbid, I guess. It's a weird thing to say, God forbid, too. If you find yourself in an animal, you can know how badly you did. The hierarchy is that people who are reincarnated into fish, generally speaking, didn't do much wrong at all. Sometimes tzaddikim are put into fish for a couple minutes just to fix them up real quick, tidy up their soul before they go to the next world. Fish is not considered a real serious incarnation.
Sorry, do you have a mistake there with the sequence? Because you're going to rocks to plants, Test shouldn't be jumping in this entire...
Yeah, no, it's not a mistake. This is his order. The best thing to be reincarnated to is a fish. The next worst after that, birds are pretty bad. Kosher mammals are worse than birds. Plants are worse than mammals. Rocks are worse than plants. And even worse than rocks is insects. That's the worst. Yeah, insects are lower than rocks.
Oh, you start from the bottom?
Yes. Yeah, this is the best. And this is the worst. You don't want to be a bug. You don't want to be a bug. But in case you're curious about how to become a bug, let's do it. I went through, when I was going through, I took note of some of the times, some of the animals that the Arizal says you can be reincarnated as if you mess up, and I thought I would share with you which sins cause which animal, just for a little bit of fun. There is one sin of Lashon Hara, eating non-kosher food, or marrying a non-Jew. All of these are sins that if a person does tshuva for and repents from, they are not accountable for, obviously. Anybody who does tshuva is exempt from anything that they did in this world. One of the great things about tshuva is not hard. People think tshuva is this deep spiritual experience. That's tshuva ilah. The basic tshuva that gets you out of trouble is deciding you're not going to do the sin anymore. Anybody who has a thought, I'm done with this sin, at that moment, they're exempt from punishment. They're just still not in God's good graces. If you want to get back in God's good graces, there's a lot of work to be done to restore the relationship. But if you don't want to get in trouble, you can get out of trouble very easily. Anybody who a moment before they die thinks, oh man, wouldn't have done that, is out of trouble. So a thought of tshuva can fix trouble. Trouble isn't all we're trying to get out of, though. If you have a parent who you love very much and they tell you, look, you're not in trouble with me anymore, but I never want to talk to you again, that's not good either. So there's levels of tshuva. But if you don't want to get in trouble, that's easy. Do tshuva before you die, you'll never get in trouble. However, people who died without doing tshuva for these things, they come back as, I wrote them down here, I wanted to make it more, I wanted to create suspense. They come back as a dog, a puppy. Who here has a dog? Guess what he did? I'm just... Your dog spoke Lashon Hara, ate treif, or was married to a non-Jew, and didn't do tshuva afterwards. Fido, bad boy. I don't know what... They come back as dogs. Okay. Once again, I cannot stress enough, doing tshuva fixes all of these things, and also I cannot stress enough that in our generation, nowadays, all Rabbanim have ruled that Jews who do not know enough about Judaism to make good decisions are considered tinekesh and ishba, children who were captured by the non-Jews and raised as non-Jews. There's 1,000 reasons to say that in our generation, punishments the way they were once described in the Torah are no longer applicable or applicable in the same way to anybody living in this generation or even in the past 100 or 200 years or so, where the gullus has gotten so deep and dark. So please, see this academically. Please don't think of your relative or friend who's not alive anymore and what dog they might be. Just don't make it personal. Don't make it personal. Okay, somebody who feeds treif to Jews on purpose. That is, that a Jew who keeps kosher comes to someo's house and says, I only eat kosher food. They say, this is premium kosher meat, and feed them treif. Unfortunately, we had this happen in Muncie a couple years back. You had it here too? Yeah? I will say that in Muncie, although I don't know your community, I will say in Muncie that the store that it happened to, where somebody was intentionally mislabeling meat as kosher when it was in fact treif, that the only line of meat not affected by this was Lubavitch meat. And I'm saying that and I'm not commenting on it. I'm just saying it. Right? I'm just saying. Huh? I'm just saying. I'm just saying that our Rabbi have promised that Lubavitch meat has their personal protection. And I'm just saying that in Muncie it happened. Okay. I'm just saying.
So if the people who eat it, do they have to be cleansed as well?
They don't have to be cleansed necessarily, but their pots sure do. Okay, another time. So somebody who feeds treif to a Jew on purpose, if they do not chew tshuva, come back as a leaf in the wind. As a leaf in the wind, which initially sounds really nice, right? A leaf in the wind. No, what happens is a down gust takes the leaf, it goes down. You ever see a leaf caught in the wind? That. A roller coaster ride you can't get off of for 3 months. That's what it is, a leaf in the wind. So that leaf in the wind for somebody who feeds treif to a Jew. Somebody who murders, which obviously is one of the real bad ones. We don't do murder. Somebody who murders is brought back as a drop of water. Now, a drop of water sounds lovely. but it's the drop of water at the bottom of a waterfall. Every time the drop of water goes down, it hits the rocks, comes back up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, for months at a time. So a very unhappy water drop. I will say, by the way, that the Arizal cautioned people, as did many Kabbalistic masters, that you very rarely drink water and you aren't drinking people. It's like almost never. That fresh bodies of water are just full of souls. Also, I will comment that I told you before, I'll tell you sort of an Arizal joke. I don't think he was trying to be funny, but he's hilarious. Rav Chaim Vital says, his student, many times I'd be traveling with my master, the Arizal. He would lean against a tree. Here we go. Remember Shloimka from the village? The one who died a few weeks ago? Mm-hmm. The tree. He's in the tree. And he would just do this. He'd walk around pointing to stuff and going, there's Meshala. Hey, Shlomo, how you doing? Rock now? Oh, don't worry, you'll get out of there. Like, he would go around commenting on this. And the Chaim Vital reports that it was like disturbing to walk in nature with him. He'd just be like, do not step on Sarah. Don't step on Sarah. It's like, he could see it. He could see it. So this is apparently somewhat common. So yeah, I don't know. Was the Arizal funny? I don't think so. Let me say it differently. Did he have a sense of humor? I don't think so. Was he funny? Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't have to be funny to have a sense of humor, right? You don't have a sense of humor to be funny. All right. Haughty leaders. This is specifically people who lord their power over the congregation with an iron fist and use their position of power, their bully pulpit, to oppress the masses. Or people who are just real full of themselves and think that they're real good talkers. So I'm guessing I'm coming back as this one. I think this one's for me. The real egotistical teachers out there. This one's for us. Also foul language, which by the way I don't use, so I'm not coming back for that one. But ego, if any of them are on I think this one's mine. Ego in leadership comes back as a bumblebee. Which honestly doesn't sound that bad. You know, we have a shortage in America of honeybees. I'm hoping to help. That's why I do this. I do this in the hopes of helping the honeybee shortage. I'm here to help.
I think we have a lot of bumblebees.
Oh yeah, that's not honeybees? Okay. It just says bee, so it could be anyone.
I think she didn't mean that.
You mean we will very shortly? Oh, wow. Don't worry, there's tshuva. Tshuva fixes it all. Tshuva fixes it all. This one's fun. Men who ogle women and make them uncomfortable with the male gaze. Believe it or not, the Arizal mentions this specifically as one of the most serious sins a man can do. Stare at a woman in that way that makes her uncomfortable. They come back as white vultures. I will tell you, I don't know much about why the Arizal, why Hashem picks these animals, but I will tell you I know a little bit of biology. You ever notice that a vulture, it has no feathers on its head? Do you know why it has no feathers on its face? You know what I'm talking about. Vultures, the way that Hashem made them, they have feathers, but there's nothing on the upper neck and face. They look sort of bald on the upper neck and face. That's why they're so ugly. In a lot of ways, they're beautiful. Vultures fly higher than any eagle. The highest flying bird is a vulture. It's actually, some people suspect that the word nesher in ancient Hebrew might mean vulture, not eagle. Because the highest flying bird, the bird described as a nesher, sounds more like a vulture that lives in that region than an eagle does. In the ancient world, vultures were considered these majestic animals, and eagles were considered kind of losers. It's not out of left field to say a nesher might be a vulture. Anyway, it's not important. It's not important. It's a majestic bird of some kind. We don't know exactly what words mean all the time. But nesher is traditionally translated as eagle. It fits vulture. It certainly fits vulture. Vultures, however, have one ugly feature, and that is that they have no skin. They have no feathers on their face. You know why Hashem made them that way? Ask a biologist, they'll tell you Hashem made them that way because their form of eating is that they only eat rotting carcasses. And so they'll find a disgusting rotting carcass, they'll stick their whole head inside it, and if they have feathers, they're never getting that off. You can't clean carcass off a feather. So the reason why Hashem made their heads not have feathers is because they were designed to stick their head in disgusting places all the time. And maybe if your eyes aren't where they belong, that's where they deserve to go. Like that's my reading of the vulture. The vulture's job is to stick his face in gross places, so maybe keep your eyes to yourself. Okay. Finally, sinning just to anger God. This is not sinning because you're hurting inside. This is not sinning from trauma. This is not sinning from taiva, from temptation. This is, I'm mad at God, and so I'm going to knock something over. That's a cat. And if you know cats, you know cats. That's a cat. Walking by the shelf, knocking over things just because I feel like it. So those people come back as cats. It's so cat, right? Do we have any cat people here? That's a cat, right? Why did you do that? 'Cause, right? I didn't want to. I just, you looked at me wrong. Vase. That's cats. Okay. And that right there is a happy guy depicted with someone who spoke a lot of Lashon Hara. Okay. We're about done. We're over time and we're about done. Let me see how many slides I have left. I don't remember. Oh, well, 3. Okay, whatever. We're about done. Can I remember my past life? I think we'd all like to, right? I think most people would like to know what they were in their past life. Number one, no. Number one, no. There's no conscious ability to recollect your past life on your own. Now, tzaddikim, no. I'm not one, but there might be one in the community. Rabbi Groner, you up for it? I don't know. Ask Rabbi Groner. Maybe he'll tell you what your soul was. You have to find a tzaddik. You have to find a tzaddik. A tzaddik can tell. Anybody else cannot. You, unless you're a tzaddik, would have no way of knowing. Your dreams will not tell you. Your visions will not tell you. The things you think you've seen where you have deja vu does not tell you. You do not know your past life unless a tzaddik tells you. That is the only way to find out. Or unless you're a tzaddik. If you're a tzaddik, follow your dreams. But you would have to be perfectly righteous to be able to tell. It's a special thing just for the righteous. So no, you can't tell. There are many sources that show that you can't tell. I think I showed some of them in the first class. The Rebbe has this in a couple letters. It's not just the Rebbe. I think I have a couple other sources that'll show you specifically. The Pele Yod specifically says you could never tell. There's many leaders in Kabbalistic thought say that anybody but a tzaddik would have no ability to know their past life. However, you can figure it out because there are a lot of hints that God left for you. You can use hints. Hint number one, mentioned in the Rebbe's letters that we learned together on our first session of the Yarchei Kallah, is that if you have a very strong temptation to do a sin, that is your evil inclination trying to make you mess up what you messed up last time. Which means your greatest challenge is 100% a signpost saying, this is what you messed up last time. Which is not what anybody wants to hear, right? Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear the thing I struggle with the most is why I was created, but that's the fact. The fact is everybody has a different Yetzer Hara. Everybody has a different greatest struggle because everybody had a different life last time, and last life, the thing you messed up is the thing you're struggling with this time. And if you beat it, you'll fulfill your purpose of existence. And saying I can fulfill my purpose of existence by doing what's easy for me and not conquering the real issue in my life is the opposite of why you're here, because those things you didn't mess up last time. You're here to fix the stuff that challenges you the most. That's in a lot of the Rebbe's letters. I think you'll find in a lot of the other Rebbe's letters about this is that talent is a hint. If you find you have a natural ability for any field or any discipline, God wants you to fulfill your purpose through that talent, obviously within the way of Torah and mitzvahs, obviously according to the code of Jewish law. But if you find you have a talent for something, that is the area in which you did not do your Judaism properly last time. And if you maximize your talent and do Judaism through your talent, you'll fulfill your purpose this time around. The Arizal and others say that the desire to learn a certain part of Torah, being drawn to a certain aspect of Torah, means you didn't study that piece of the Torah last time. And I believe it is the Vilna Gaon, and I think it's his commentary on Mishlei, but I have it in my notes somewhere, but I don't want to scroll right now. He says that if you have a very strong urge to do a mitzvah that you really, really love, that is your godly soul saying, let's do this, we didn't do this last time. You know, that sounds very esoteric what I just told you, all these little hints. You know what I also just said? I want to show you this because I want you to understand how Kabbalah works. We just did something very esoteric. We traveled through souls, we did sparks. I told you that you can kind of figure out what you were in your last life in these hint sort of ways. You know what I also just said if you were listening carefully? I just said, don't do what your Yetzer Hara says. Do what your Yetzer Tov says. Study Torah in areas that you enjoy and follow your talents. That's not Kabbalistic at all. That's just Torah. You see? This is what Kabbalah is. Kabbalah is a deep, esoteric exploration, and the only way you can be sure you did it right is if you arrive back in a place that the Nigla de Torah would agree with. We've said the most basic principles of Torah and derived them from the esoteric. That's Kabbalah done right. If the esoteric secrets of the Torah take you down a road that you cannot then reaffirm using the basic laws of Shulchan Aruch and the basic logic of a good person, you turned wrong somewhere. All this journey has led us to is don't listen to your Yetzer Hara, do listen to your Yetzer Tov, learn a lot of Torah and lean into your talents. That shows you went the right way. You went the right way if you arrive in the right place. This is where we belong, obviously, so it makes sense. It makes sense. Which brings me to what I'm going to make, I believe, the final slide. Because we talked about some of these other things previously. There's a right and wrong way to study these topics. If somebody studies these topics hoping to, become a wizard or something or a witch, I guess that's obviously wrong. Studying Kabbalah so you can have magic powers and influence the world, it's a real bad reason to study Kabbalah, and God will lock the doors of wisdom from you without a doubt. God is very protective over this secret wisdom, and I guarantee if you're doing it for the wrong reason, you'll never understand it. So you can try, you won't get anywhere. That's obviously off the table. But you know what else? Some people study the gates of reincarnations because they're hoping to figure out what they did last time. And if they figure out what they did last time, they can take shortcuts, God forbid. If I discover that in my last life I was perfect, I just didn't keep kosher, then I just have to work really hard on kosher and I'll be fine. They try to cheat the system. That's not what this is for either, and God will lock the doors. The reason why we have the study of Shara Gilgulim, the study of reincarnation, is not just to be vaguely interested in an esoteric topic, or to try to get ahead, or to try to exert our power over the situation. That's not why we study Torah. God revealed these things to us for a couple of basic reasons. Number one, it awakens fear of heaven. It awakens real Yiras Shamayim. Yiras Shamayim, fear of heaven, of course doesn't mean running and screaming from a scary God, but it does mean, at the most basic level, it doesn't mean not fear. People have taken fear out of Judaism and we have to put it back in. Fear is not just awe. There is such a thing as fear. It's just a healthy fear. It's the fear that a husband and wife have in their relationship at the bottom of their relationship, which is that even if I'm tempted, I don't betray the relationship. Fear of loss. Fear of violating something sacred. Fear of the king is in the room and while the king's staring at me, I don't slap him in the face. I think that I know that every healthy relationship has a basis of healthy fear below it, where I recognize that there are things I could do that would permanently damage this relationship and I'm afraid of the loss. That is a kind of Yiras Shamayim. That has to be part of Judaism. It's not just awe of the greatness of God. There's that. That's called Yirat Hatah, and it's very, very important. It is the basis of a healthy Judaism and the basis of a healthy relationship. This awakens yira on both levels. It awakens an awe in the Creator who organizes the world in such a way that everybody comes back and does their task and has opportunities again and again and again. It also awakens the baseline fear of heaven, that if I don't get it right this time, He's bringing me back until I do. There's some seriousness to the situation. A person who thinks that way has the basis of Judaism intact and can build on that, a beautiful personal Judaism of love. But the fear has to be part of it. The fear has to be part of it. Reishis Chochmah says that this reminds us of the stakes. If I think that the next few minutes of my life are just, whatever, I'll get around to mitzvahs eventually, I'll learn Torah eventually, the stakes are not as high as some people say, relax, take your time. Don't relax, don't take your time. Mashiach's coming. I have a limited amount of time in this exile, or God forbid, a limited amount of time in this world. I need to use it to its maximum. I'm here for a purpose. I was sent here with a specific mission in mind. It's not that as long as I'm alive anyway, I'll do good. It's that I was sent back here specifically to do good. It reminds us of the stakes of the game that we're playing. Judaism is something that we do during life. Judaism is our lives. It's the whole reason we're here in the first place. We were brought back for this, not for the other stuff. The other stuff is a side thing, an unimportant thing. It's only important if we imbue it with Judaism, of course. Then it becomes very important. The Chidush Yarim is the first Rebbe of Ger. I think I have some cool sources up here. He says that this emphasizes that God's will is always carried out. It's not the will of God that I do a sin, so how can I do something against the will of God? I can. I'm not going to. I'm not going to do one right now. But if I did a sin right now, God forbid, I would violate the will of God. How is that even possible? I thought God's everywhere and everything and in charge. And the answer is, He is. And He'll bring me back again and again until I fix it. That's what it means that the will of God is always met. And finally, the Rebbe says, it removes any suspicion that God is unjust. Anytime we see an injustice in the world, we can, although I don't suggest doing it in a time of pain, and I don't suggest doing it without help, and I don't suggest doing it without sitting down with seriousness, at the end of the day, when we see true injustice, sometimes that's a Gilgul at work. And so it also helps us deal with some of the apparent injustices in the world, or some of the apparent tragedies in the world, looking at them and going, this soul was here before and completed its task in a way that doesn't always seem obvious to me right now. Obviously that one is to be done with incredible sensitivity in specific situations and with guidance, but it's out there for us. I told you I wasn't going to do the last slide, but I feel like we should end on this. Let's end on the words of our Rebbe. Somebody wrote to our Rebbe. I showed you this in the first class. I'd like to repeat it again now. They wrote to the Rebbe. They asked the Rebbe, tell me what the root of my soul is on high. I want to know what I was doing here last time. I want to know what was wrong with my soul last time. I want to know how to fix it. Tell me my reincarnation. I want to know. And the Rebbe writes back. I want to read it to you literally. Behold, it is known that the teachings of our holy Torah, the teaching of our holy Torah, wow, that's bad. That's my attempt at literal translation. I'm reading sideways. It is known from a teaching of our holy Torah that God did not create even one thing in this world for no reason. That is, everything in this world God made is for a purpose. And this applies also to stuff that you may need to clarify in order to have that will be dependent upon your Torah and mitzvahs and the way you keep them. Let me speak outside a little bit. It says in this letter, everything God made was for a purpose. Number one. Number two, that applies also to stuff you might need to know in order to fulfill Torah and mitzvahs, meaning that everything you can figure out with your own mortal mind is something that could be used for Torah and mitzvahs. If you need a Rebbe's help to figure something out intellectually, you don't need it. The Rebbe continues. Regarding you, if I told you where your soul was from, what difference would that make in your life? The Rebbe is saying, I know, and I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you because you can't explain what you would do with it. How would you be a better Jew if you knew what you were in your past life? Maybe you'd be a worse Jew. As the Peliyed says, maybe it would make you really sad to know you messed up last time. Maybe it would make you overconfident to know that you nailed it last time. Maybe it would make you focus on one mitzvah when in fact you should be focusing on all of them. I can't see any healthy use of your prior incarnation. It'll either make you sad, and you shouldn't be because this is a new life now. It'll make you happy and you have no reason to be because this is you this time making these decisions. What would you do with this information? You have a code of Jewish law in front of you. In the code of Jewish law is everything you have to do. Why are you wandering around in the Kabbalah? This doesn't mean don't study Kabbalah. This doesn't mean don't study Pnimis HaTorah. It means if you can't explain to me how learning Torah is going to make you a better Jew, it's not for you. Any information needs to better me. It needs to self-actualize. It needs to count as a mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Any great mystical secret that a Jew can't use, a Jew doesn't want. That's the Yetzer Hara that wants it. My Nefesh Elokis wants information it can use. And the truth is, knowing what I was in my past life is irrelevant to me. How do I know? Because I don't know it. God tells me everything I need in order to succeed. He didn't tell me this because I don't need it. So in answer to the question, tell me where my soul comes from, the Rebbe says back, why would I? You have everything you need in the code of Jewish law. If a Jew does what God says, keeps Jewish law, says no to the Yetzer Hara and yes to the Yetzer Tov, and leans into their talents, they will automatically end up fulfilling the purpose of being in this world. Ma lano esik b'nistaris. Don't wander around in this stuff too deeply. There's one more letter on the screen that isn't about reincarnation, but I think raises the point and sort of solidifies the point in the Rebbe's Shita. And I want to end with this, obviously, because I don't have any more slides and because we're way over time. But I want to end with this. Because it's the last thing, it's literally the last thing I have in front of me. Somebody wrote to the Rebbe one time and said that she's pretty sure her daughter, as I believe the letter was, her daughter's gone off the derech, her daughter's not interested in Judaism anymore, and she believes it's because a witch cursed her. And so she writes to the Rebbe, you got anything for witches? Like, I know you have dollars for tzedakah, you have mezuzah stuff. You got anything for witch curses? I'm pretty sure this was a witch. And the Rebbe writes back, I don't want you to think about witchcraft at all. And then he says why. Look at why. Kizel machlish hishtadlus batzlasa. Because it makes you work less hard to help her. When a person uses mysticism, esotericism, magic to abdicate responsibility, it has no place in their life anymore until they're ready to take responsibility again. What a lot of people do is they use Kabbalah to hide. I can't be expected to do this because I'm traumatized from my past life. I can't be expected to do this because I know the root of my soul and my soul can't. I can't be expected to help this person because a witch cursed them. It couldn't possibly be that I could be treating my daughter better. It must be a witch. People use mysticism so often to abdicate personal responsibility, and the Rebbe has no patience for it. When he senses that, he says, stop playing magic with me. Stop falling on these Hasidic stories and look in the mirror and ask yourself, is there something I can do? So one of the reasons the Rebbe doesn't want us playing around in these things is because it involves abdicating personal responsibility. We are responsible for our lives in this world. We have a Nefesh Elokis and a Nefesh Bahamas. We have a Yetzer Tov and we have a Yetzer Hara. We have control over, assuming we are mentally and physically healthy, we have control over ourselves. And blaming it on mysticism is not only unfair, it's counterproductive. So there's a way to do this. There's a way to do this. There's a way to study Gilgulim in a healthy way. That's the healthy way to study Gilgulim. To look back at the Torah and see the verses that line up and show us that Moshe and Noah had to have been the same soul coming back again and see the beauty of God's world. We don't use mysticism as a way out. We use mysticism as a way in. All right, thanks everybody. Sorry we went over.